Welcome to Roll for Geekiness. J, A, and G here, and we just got back from Flower City Comic Con in Rochester, New York. And
it was a thing.
It was a thing. Yeah, honestly, it was a little disappointing, and we'll get into that
soon enough.
Yeah, that one. Where should we start?
So, positives.
Positives.
I will go with positives.
Yeah.
So, the venue, very large, good space. And it was nice that there was no parking charges. It wasn't hard to find parking.
Right. So it was held at some sort of indoor sports complex. So there was a lot of indoor space, which I'm not sure they made the best use of that they could. And I think that was kind of one of the first things that struck me is that they had a lot of space, and I think they could have done more with it than they did. That said, they did do a lot with it. The vendor space was pretty big. There was a whole space set aside for gaming, and you were doing some laser tag even over there for a while. They had enough space set up to do some laser tag. And there were 3 panel rooms set aside in another part of the venue, and a classroom, and a changing area for cosplayers. So yeah, there's a lot that they did have.
So inside, obviously, most of the stuff was happening there. But outside, there was a good amount of food trucks outside. They had a pavilion set up with some tables and stuff. So I think it's cool that they used not only the indoor space that they had, but also the surrounding outside.
Yeah, and that wasn't a good way to bring in a variety of food for the event, which it would have been better I think it would have been great if we'd known that was there, because the website said food TBA, even when you checked the website on Saturday morning. But yeah, that was good.
I will say, to their credit, they did hand everyone a map, though, with some bullet points and highlights of what to know about the event as well when you showed up. So maybe everything wasn't available ahead of time, but they did give us info on where things were at and what was happening when you got there.
Yeah. That's definitely true. So from that perspective, it was well organized.
Yes.
I think my big pro for the event was there was a lot of good cosplay.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, there was a lot of really great costumes and characters, a lot of really great people, cosplayers, and really we saw the whole range of levels of cosplay, possibly people that might be newer or veterans, which have obviously been doing it for years and therefore have those hyper small details.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people taking photos, and even several people taking video. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there was 2 different music video, B-roll being shot there.
Yeah, a couple of people said that they were going to be putting some videos out afterwards, so we'll have to look for those, and maybe you should too, because there'll be definitely some cool stuff, probably us even maybe highlighted in those.
Yeah, maybe you'll see us some point in there, yeah.
To piggyback on that, since there was a wide variety of offerings and a wide variety of showings in terms of what people brought, I will also say that this struck me as maybe the most family-friendly event we've been to. There were a lot of kids there.
Yeah.
And a lot of activities geared towards, I think, keeping everyone in every age range entertained.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're looking for a con to go to where you could bring your kids and they're of different age ranges, this is a good con to go to.
Yeah.
And I think some of that dovetails into one of the first things that I found curious about the event when I started looking at the schedule. And that was the fact that half to 2/3 of the panels were being run by the Girl Scouts of America or the Boy Scouts of America. So some local chapter of Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, and they ranged from whatever the youngest groups were to the oldest groups were in both of those respective groups. And that was curious to me because it wasn't clear whether like anyone could show up for these or if you were only supposed to show up for them if you were trying to get your merit badge of one sort or another. And that was like I said, like a large chunk of the panels and programming available to the event. And I guess to be fair, like it is being put on by a nonprofit educational organization. The people coordinating and running this event are educators. They are trying to fulfill that educational mission. So it definitely makes sense for them to be coordinating with those groups and utilizing those community resources to create that sort of programming. But if you're going there to like find a panel on, I don't know, making EVA foam armor or the kinds of other things that you tend to find at Comic-Cons or cosplay or comic sort of centric events, things we see at a lot of other events that we go to, those were notably absent from the schedule.
Yeah, on the schedule it was mainly, as you said, those Girl Scout and Boy Scout things, but otherwise there was a good amount of fandom discussions. We didn't actually end up going into any of those. We don't know how it was working, but it seemed like they would just talk about that fandom for that period, which honestly I think isn't a bad thing. It's great to like try to get people that are interested in these topics together in the same room and possibly like have them meet new people, make new friends. That's a great way to do that, like to have something that you link on
exactly
with other people. So that was, I feel like, most of the rest of the stuff. They did have a couple guests, I believe, but
there were a couple guests that were doing like Q&A sessions with, so they weren't even necessarily talking about anything in particular. They were literally set up as Q&A sessions, and then like you said, that rounded
the
out
communities,
the majority of the schedule with Star Wars fandom discussion, Star Trek fandom discussion, etc., Doctor Who fandom discussion, and so it felt like there wasn't a lot of effort put into creating those panels, right? Like it was just kind of like, we're going to set aside this space and some people can go in and talk about stuff for an hour, and then we'll cycle them out and some other group will go in and talk. So
yeah, I'd argue if you're looking for something that was more content heavy, then this is not the con. If you're looking for something that might be just more about connecting with other people, whether that's through a Q&A or a fandom, then maybe this is for you if that's more what you're looking for.
there was a good variety in the vendor area, I would agree on that. I think what was tricky for me about the vendor area, and I think you had some comments on this too, it seemed kind of scattered. They managed to put like the 501st and the Rebel Legion next to each other, which was great. But there were a lot of other local fan groups, like the Rochester Browncoats, for example, was one of the first that jumps to mind. That was like halfway across the vendor hall, and it feels like they could have just done a little bit better by trying to group some of the tables together in ways that felt more organic. So you could put all the fandom tables in one area. Maybe if you'd put some of the artists and the special guests in like a artist alley kind of space, that could have helped too, because it kind of just felt like you're walking through and there were a lot of different things just like right on top of each other, and there wasn't a lot of space between the booths either. Like the tables were just one giant row, and it was kind of hard to digest and kind of hard to really get a sense of where one vendor started and where the next one started, and get a sense of what you were really looking at. And I think either by sort of organizing it a tiny bit, and you don't want to organize it too much. You don't want to put like all the comic book vendors next to each other because then they're obviously competing.
Yeah, it felt like it was hard for me to orient myself in the vendor hall, which felt a little confusing because it wasn't for a lack of organization or there being aisles or things being lined up.
Aisles are pretty wide, yeah.
It was more so it felt hard to distinguish things from one another, and I think the fact that we were in a really big venue space didn't help either. So it wasn't this closed off room that you were going into, or this more finite space. It was this really giant.
It was essentially a soccer field.
Yeah, it was a huge piece of the arena. So I think that just didn't help with the feel of there being a lot to absorb and making it hard to digest everything.
So the other thing that was odd to me is there was a whole space set aside for tabletop gaming, and there was one gaming event the entirety of Saturday.
There were two.
There were two?
Yeah, remember there was that other tournament that I can't remember the name of right now, not the Magic one.
No,
yeah.
I don't. Okay, sorry, I stand corrected. There were two gaming events going on for the entirety of Saturday, one of them being a Magic draft and the other being...
It was limited to 20 people, I think, hour long, or maybe longer than that, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. Tournament.
So maybe there was some sort of board game tournament of some sort.
I believe so.
And there did look like whoever was sponsoring it, because it did seem like it was kind of being sponsored by a local game store who had their booth set up, their vendor space set up in the game area.
Mm-hmm.
They did have like some board games just like set out on tables for people to play, but there weren't a lot of people availing themselves of that. So there was a huge space set up for open gaming, and nothing was happening in it. Yeah, so despite the fact that there were a couple new panels every hour, like we said, they were kind of scattered. And none of them really caught our interest in particular. So we got there, we wandered around the vendor hall, we interacted with a lot of people. We wandered into the gaming area, we interacted with a lot of people. We wandered through the main stage area, we watched Michael Myers do a dance-off with a Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm. That was fun.
That was pretty good,
actually. That was good. That was great. That was great.
Yeah, and then we were kind of bored and didn't even hang around for the cosplay competition, which is kind of what we'd gone for, but it felt like we were going to just have to kill too much time.
Yeah, I think it felt like the bottom line was that I know you and I were talking about this. I think we like going and doing things or learning things, and I think maybe this just wasn't the con for us either. Because I do think if you just wanted to connect with people over some fandoms or were looking to meet some of the people who were available as celebrity guests, then maybe this would have felt more engaging. Okay, so I think for me, it feels like at the end of the day, as G said earlier, this is maybe not the con for me or for us. I could see its appeal though if you have a family, you're local to the area, and you're looking to go enjoy a con for the day, or maybe for a couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had my misgivings looking at the schedule initially because I'm like, I didn't see anything that really caught my eye. I don't know that I would discount the event, but I think that would kind of be my benchmark going forward, is if we do look at the schedule and start to see things on that schedule that do look more interesting to us as a whole, yeah, I think it would be worth going back to. But as it stands now, it's mostly Girl Scout and Boy Scout merit badge stuff and some fandom discussions, which just isn't our cup of tea.
Yeah, it's a great hangout, to be honest. As I said, meeting new people, meeting people with interest in stuff you're interested in, great vendors. It's a great experience, and yet again, as I said, it's just, I don't think it's for us.
Shout out to the really friendly staff though, everyone was really nice, and getting in the door and getting all our stuff checked was
Yeah,
really simple and easy.
I was gonna mention
It was
that.
smooth.
I
That was Flower City Comic Con 2022.
So remember, until next time,
Stay geeky and
super glue is called super glue for a reason.